Welcome back. And hey, so how does Shannon do a top 15 of the Vegas Golden Knights? They just came into existence a couple years ago. Hey, I'll do 16. How does 16 sound? Because the one that I left out of the top 15, I'm like, I can't leave him out of the top 15 because people aren't going to be happy with me for leaving him out of the top 15. And I can't argue against the idea that he has to be on the board. He kind of sort of has to be on the board. So, with honorable mention to a guy like Brandon Peary, who was a fun little story for Vegas a couple of times there. Ryan Carpenter, who was also a fun story after he arrived in Vegas. And most players after they arrive in Vegas. Now, what I had to do to make this work is I had to take my guidelines that I've used for other teams and throw them out. So if I've already talked about a player on another team, it doesn't matter. Whatever player I talk about on this list, I can talk about him on a different team as well because, again, it's a smaller sample size overall. It doesn't matter if a guy's been on another list before. And it's also a matter of it doesn't matter if the guy's only played a handful of games. Doesn't matter. So Nick Hague just misses out on this as well. Cody Eakin misses out. He had a couple of good years after leaving the Dallas Stars. And I, as a Dallas Stars fan, I was glad to see him go. Not because I didn't like Eakin, but because I thought he was paid a little bit much. And he didn't have a good last year with Dallas. So I was glad to see him do well in Vegas. And yeah, Eric Howla, honorable mention. Malcolm Subban for, being the backup for two plus years and not complaining about not being played when other goaltenders might have. And yeah, there are a lot of players who've been through Vegas that I've liked. And part of it too is the fact that this channel, as it was growing a few years back, Vegas fans were a big part of that, and Vegas is still a big part of clearly of what I do here. And when we plan out vacations and holidays, which right now, nope, but when we do those, Vegas is always on the list because it's a cheap place to go. There's always something to do on the Strip especially if you're a tourist. I understand locals try to stay away from the Strip for the most part. There are some that don't. I follow a lot of different people, and I'm friends with different people from Vegas and in the Vegas area, and there are some that go and watch shows on the Strip. But I get it; it's a giant tourist trap, and I'm kind of a giant tourist, so at least I think so. Oh, they were calling me a tool. All right, so anyhow, Ryan Reeves is number 16 on the list out of 15 because that's how much I've followed Vegas right since basically game one. And yeah, so Vegas Golden Knights, let's do the top 15. Number 15. Now, his third year, his second year in Vegas wasn't as good as his first year. The Vegas' third year, he's at Buffalo. Now, he hasn't had a great year in Buffalo either. I do hope Colin Miller can bounce back. I like Colin Miller. I think offensively he's pretty good. Defensively, yeah, there's some issue with his game, but offensively he's pretty good, and hopefully he bounces back from what's been an abysmal season this year. And of course, last year in the Vegas system, he wasn't very popular either. So that's an issue, and hopefully, yeah, like I said, hopefully his career comes back. Number 14. Get that up to 14 already. Alex Tuck. So, in terms of players that they've stolen from other teams, I consider Tuck to be kind of a theft from Minnesota. Tuck's been pretty good for them. Now, he's been injured this year, and his numbers, when healthy, weren't as good as other seasons, but I think he'll be fine. I still think his contract's a little bit rich, but he'll be fine. And he's one of the many forwards that Vegas has that are pretty darn good. And this is why when there's talk about maybe they need a blue liner, that you can look at a forward like Tuck and say maybe that's a guy that you dangle at some point, perhaps. And I'm saying at some point, not right now, obviously, but at some point you look and go, that's a piece we could move and maybe make things better elsewhere. So, yeah, Tuck. Number 13. He hasn't had that many games yet as a member of the team. He's still a rookie right now. But again, I've waived my rule about rookies and all that on this list. Cody Glass. I like Cody Glass a lot. It is a shame they traded Nick Suzuki. If you had Suzuki and Glass both in this lineup at the same time, I would be very impressed by that. And it would have been fun to see these guys coming up together. And that being said, Glass still ends up number 13 on the list and shows that Vegas isn't without young players. There are young players that are going to come up. They're going to play for Vegas. And they seem to have a pretty smart scouting system when it comes to professional scouting. So maybe they're going to be able to keep this up. Either way, ownership's expectation is a Stanley Cup in the first 5 years. And they're in a much better shape, or they're in much better shape to do so than any team that's existed since the 1967 expansion. So that expansion right up there on that banner in the corner, 1967 expansion, class of '67. All right, and the Blues are just behind Shadow there, as well as the Penguins logo as well. So they're up there, promise. Number 12. So moving on from Cody Glass to number 12. It's not Brandon. Sorry, Pat Sajak. It's not Brandon. Brandon McNabb. Braden McNabb. He had one job. Braden McNabb, excellent addition for this team. Again, that expansion, they got so many good players. They did have access to better players than other expansion teams. The part that I don't understand is why everybody hates on Vegas for it. You guys got good players in the expansion draft. Shouldn't we have always had expansion drafts where you had access to decent players so you didn't have to be crap for the first 5 years? And hey, I understand that for like Ottawa and San Jose and Tampa and other teams, they really had to struggle. But was that really the right move to make? Was that smart of the NHL to go, all right, well, you gave us $100 million. Now here's some crap. Here's everybody else's leftovers. You gave us $40 million. Here's garbage. You look at the Atlanta Thrashers and what they went through, and it starts with the expansion draft. Absolutely terrible expansion draft for Atlanta, because if you had a good player, you could protect him. And if you're going to expand and you're going to make the league at least balanced, you have to let an expansion team have some good players. Not the best players, but good. I'm not talking about like, oh, they got Tavares or something. I'm talking about guys like Braden McNabb. So, number 11. And at the time of the draft, nobody looked at that expansion roster of the Vegas Golden Knights and said, oh, clearly they're going to be a playoff team. Nobody said it, myself included. No self-respecting journalist was saying it at the time either. Other than, well, they did pretty well for themselves. And, they got Fleury and net, so their goaltending should be good. Number 11. Number 11 on the list. I'll go with Mark Stone. Stone hasn't been a Golden Knight for as long as some others. And to me, I still remember Stone as a Senator. So he's played very well out of the gate. He makes a lot of money, but Vegas had the money to cover him, and it was a good move. It was a good move for a team that is, as I said, looking to win a Stanley Cup in their first 5 years. Adding Stone, who is one of the best two-way forwards in the game. Pretty smart move by them. Number 10, also a smart addition that they made in a deal where I really wish they hadn't included Nick Suzuki. Just in all honesty, Max Pacioretty. So Pacioretty and Stone, two of the more recent additions for them. And yet they've been very important to the Vegas Golden Knights, and part of the reason that they've done quite well this year is additions like that. Number 9. Okay, so with Pacioretty off the board, Derek Englund, resident of Las Vegas, and he's got a job with them this year. I would think that when he retires, when he leaves the game, I would think he moves into some kind of a management role within the Vegas Golden Knights, if he chooses to. But very popular player, and honestly, at the time that Englund went to Vegas, his career looked like it was winding down. I think playing for the Vegas Golden Knights has added years to his career. Now, while he does have his share of miscues right now, and by right now I mean the season that's been paused about almost a month ago now, Englund has still been a pretty excellent player overall throughout his career, and he's one of those guys that clearly I would be cheering for because there's been times in his career where he's been healthy scratch or he's been let go and he signed somewhere else and might be on waivers, and so England's fought through and he's had a pretty good career for himself, and yeah, Englund number 9 on the list. Number 8. Shea Theodore. As blue liners go, Shea Theodore is the best offensively minded blue liner this team has had. And he was in the process of rewriting their defense record books. It's only year 3, but still, it's nice to see those numbers get bumped up. And I think with Theodore, I think we're just starting to see where he's going to end up. I think he's going to be an excellent player for a long time for Vegas. And again, just the names on the board, and you compare that with almost any other expansion team in year 3, there's some good ones, and Shea Theodore is one of the best. And I know there's been talk about whether or not Seattle might get some kind of deals like Vegas did coming into the league. My answer is still yes, because teams are going to have players that they would lose in the expansion draft that they say, well, I'd rather not lose that guy, so I'll trade them this guy and a draft pick because the guy I'm going to trade them is less vital to this team going forward than the guy I want to keep. So we'll still see those deals. Theodore coming over, of course, from Anaheim. Anaheim would love to have Shea Theodore right now, but that's kind of how this works with expansion. Number 7. Yeah, I'll throw him on the board here. Thomas Nosek. Part of that fourth line, which is one of the best fourth lines in the NHL. And it is impressive how if the momentum's turning against Vegas, they can throw that fourth line out there and they push back. They're pretty good on the puck, pretty fast, pretty smart, and Nosek can put the puck in the back of the net as well. He does have that ability, and that's a fourth line that does keep you honest. They score enough goals on occasion so that you have to watch yourself against them. Yes. So Nosek for me, number 7. And at number 6, I'll throw his line mate. One of the cleanest hitters in the NHL. I say that because William Carrier throws a ton of hits, and we almost never see GIFs out there on Twitter or anywhere else from somebody going, hey, from the Vegas game tonight, look what Carrier did. Guy should be suspended. You almost never see it. So, and I'm saying almost never. I've never seen it. I'm not saying you never see it because somebody's going to go, oh, remember that one back in like 1997 when he was a kid and he was like 2 or something. But he was kind of a jerk when anyways. So because the internet's the internet, and all I'm saying almost never, just to hedge a little bit. But Carrier is one of the cleanest when you consider just how many hits he throws, and then they're good hits. So you look at the replay and go, oh, that's a nice, clean, open ice hit. Carrier is one of the guys still doing that. He's kind of a throwback to how hockey was played years back. And the Vegas Golden Knights kind of are as well. They're a heavy-hitting team when you've got Reeves and Carrier out there. That's quite the tandem, and a lot of hits thrown by both players. They'll keep you honest, and they'll keep you bruised up, too. Number 5. Nope, not putting him here. All right, we'll go with this one. Going back to the blue line. When the expansion draft took place, Washington fans weren't happy that they lost Nate Schmidt. And that was pretty smart. Nate Schmidt has been the absolute anchor to that blue line. He's been that from the beginning. He's still that now. I know he doesn't score as much as Theodore, but to me, Schmidt's still the guy on the blue line. He is the most reliable. And when you look at a slow start that the team had last year, him being suspended was a big part of it. And when Nate Schmidt's not in the lineup, Vegas feels it. You can tell. He is a major minute-munching defenseman. One thing with the Vegas Golden Knights in their third year, in terms of their depth as an organization, they are still behind a lot of other teams. There is still some patchwork when it comes to AHL and some prospects because they don't have that decades of building. And So when Schmidt goes down, it's harder for them to patch things up than it might be for some of the other teams in the NHL. They're not a team with the worst depth. I'm just saying it definitely affects them, and it's hard for them because they're still building their franchise. They're still putting things together, which is just scary when you consider where they've been in their first 3 years, right? Number 4. No, I can't put him here either. All right, number 4. Jonathan Marchessault. Marchessault was one of my favorite players in Florida. I remember when he went to Vegas, my reaction being one of, why? And it was, well, they want to lose Riley Smith's contract too. Wait, what? Why? Why are they trading why are they losing these guys? Why are they making a deal to take one so that they lose the other? This just doesn't make any sense. And I know it was a financial decision, it was a contract decision, but Marchessault's been really, really good for them. And the one thing with Marchessault, it always reminds me of Jim Houston for some reason calling him Marcia Show. Like, it's what, when, how? And then he went back to calling him Marchessault, and I never heard him describe why he started calling him Marcia Show. But it's Jonathan Marchessault, and ask Brandon McNabb about that. But yeah, Marchessault was one of my favorite players in Florida, and I've seen nothing from him in Vegas to tell me he isn't still one of my favorites. And his scoring may not end up being what it was in year 1, but he's still a pretty good player. He's still capable of 55, 60 points a year. And at I think it's a $5 million price tag, it's not too bad. Really isn't. Number 3. Riley Smith. I watched Riley Smith in Dallas. I watched Riley Smith in Boston. I was always a fan of Riley Smith. I know there were fans that weren't a huge fan of his last year, and I want to say in Boston. He had a down year, and then he went to Florida, and I was a fan of his in Florida, and now he's in Vegas. I'm still his fan. I like Riley Smith, and I know he goes through stretches where he's having trouble scoring, but you know what? He's a good player. He really is. He's a good player. I don't have anything bad to say about him. I really don't. His price tag as well isn't really a problem. I like Riley Smith. There wasn't really anything else I have to say about that. That's basically it. Number 2. MarcAndre Fleury. What's not to like? Really? MarcAndre Fleury has been one of the most down-to-earth guys out of the Vegas Golden Knights. He's been their unofficial leader. People talk about who the captain is. It's been Fleury. Like, not in your traditional captain sense, but he's really kind of been their leader. And he came over with this great resume from Pittsburgh in terms of winning, and he didn't whine about it. There was at no point did you see Fleury going, great, I got to be on an expansion team. This is stupid. My career's winding down, and I got to go to an expansion team. And he had a big smile on his face when he put on that Vegas jersey for the first time. He was the public face of the franchise, along with a few of the other guys on the board, and he's been a great ambassador for the game. This when you look at how you're supposed to behave as a player on a team that's brand new in a market, MarcAndre Fleury's it. He is 100% how you should act, and he's just been great for them, and it seemed to rejuvenate his career as well. With Pittsburgh, he had that nice run in the playoffs, but regular season he'd been having his struggles, and in Vegas he turned that around. He's been great, and I think that the story of him going to Vegas and what Vegas has done, I think it's made MarcAndre Fleury a Hall of Famer. I don't see how he doesn't end up in the Hall of Fame. Now, if he'd stayed in Pittsburgh and if he'd ended up being like a 1B goaltender behind Matt Murray, and if he'd faded, I don't know. He's still on the cusp of potentially being in the Hall of Fame. But I think his time in Vegas has made it so I don't think it's arguable anymore whether or not he belongs there. I think it's a matter of how many ballots does it take to get him in. I'm thinking right away. As soon as he's eligible, I think he goes in. I'd be very surprised if he didn't. Number 1. Now, anybody from Vegas is going to know who I have at number 1. And anybody who's watched this channel for any significant period of time will know William Carlson's my favorite member of the Vegas Golden Knights. Now I'm going to say this as somebody who's watched two of their games up close, and I've watched all of their games on TV. William Carlson works so bloody hard at both ends of the ice. So one thing that I appreciated about his game, seeing him live, when you see players live, you can really pay attention to this where you don't have to follow a camera. Just his play away from the puck, his play in his own zone. The fact that he plays that full... You always hear about full 200-foot game, to the point where it's kind of cliche right now. Well, he plays a full 200 feet. Well, yeah, he has to go from one end of the rink to the other. But who really plays that full 200-foot game? William Carlson. So even when he's not scoring, and every now and then, and I belong to a couple of Vegas Golden Knight groups on Facebook, and you'll see Vegas fans saying, well, Will's not scoring. And there are those that'll say it doesn't matter if he's scoring or not. And others go, well, with the money he's being paid, he should be scoring points. When he's not scoring, he's still a very useful player. He does a little bit of everything, and he is strong as a bull, and he really is fantastic. I don't understand how he was available for Vegas. I don't understand why a team made a deal with Vegas to make sure they took him, because that first year he had 40 goals. I don't think he gets 40 goals again in his career, but 25 to 30 is in his wheelhouse, and I think it'll be there for a while. He's not old. He's not a player that I think has had any kind of diminished play. Again, if you just measure his play by goals, then you can look and go, well, it's not what it was the first year. Even without the goals, he's a fantastic player for Vegas. The work ethic is amazing, and he has proven he's a top 6 player in the NHL. And I don't have anything else to add to that. A big part of the reason why George McPhee has been able to do this. You can look at the expansion rules, but he knew how to build a team. So when you had Carlson, Smith, and Marchessault that first year, the three of them together, it just worked. And so, yeah, for me, William Carlson's my favorite. Mark Stone is probably the best overall player on the team, but Carlson's still my favorite. So there you go. My top 16 favorite Vegas Golden Knights, just because people doubted I could come up with 15. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. It means a lot. Stay home, stay safe, keep your hands nice and clean, and we'll get through this. Thank you guys so much for everything. I'll talk to you again soon.